Good Tuesday morning. My name is Jerry Miller, and welcome to Real Talk on the I Love CVille Network. This, an insider's guide to real estate, life, and the pursuit of happiness, powered by the Yes Team Realtors. Phenomenal program lined up for you. Donny Wyatt, Chief Executive Officer, CoConstruct, will join us in about 4 minutes on today's program. We'll also welcome Sally Hudson to the show, Virginia House of Delegates. She's a rep in the 57th. She's going to join us at about 10:50. A lot to cover on the docket. If you could give it a like and a share on any of the Facebook pages you're watching the show on. Judah, let's go to the studio camera. Let's welcome the distinguished gentleman to the show. Keith, good afternoon, or I guess good morning, my friend. How are you?
Good morning. Good morning. I've been excited about this show. It's hard to tell with the mask, right? Can't see the smile on my face.
I like that mask.
Thank you. We've got, we were trying to do the mustache thing, but it just didn't work out. But, we got two, we talk about this all the time about bringing rock stars on, and we have two rock stars today. Donny, on top of being a local guy, he has a huge national footprint. And I'm excited to talk about, how he's seeing things out in the national level as far as the market goes, and particularly around new construction. And then, I'm loving the conversation with Sally. The governor's issuing this reopening program, for lack of a better term, and hopefully she can share some additional information on that. And
how do you feel about it?
About the opening program?
Yeah, Friday.
Look, I sent a post out. My father, grandfather, great-grandfather, all New York City firemen, and my hero in my life is my father. And he told me something, I can't remember what it was around, but he looked at me and he said, "Safety first, Batman," right? So, this is all about safety first. This is all about, doing the right thing and taking care of yourself and taking care of others. I may be a bit Pollyannic about it, but if we all do this and we all are taking care of ourselves and one another and respectful for one another and do safety first, Batman, we'll get through this.
Well said.
If not, then I'm confident the governor will shut it down in a heartbeat.
Yeah, I think that's going to happen. Guys, we'll follow it closely. We'll talk about that with Sally Hudson at 10:50. Donny Wyatt, we'll go to you in about 2 minutes here on the program. You guys had a good weekend, real estate-wise.
Yeah. Not to toot our own horn, but we put a home on the market on Saturday morning and basically had it wrapped up by the evening.
So it goes to your prediction, your call, your feel, your sense that the market, while uncertain, has interest and demand, and it's got a chance to be strong.
That is my opinion. I can't wait to hear what Donny has to say, because he has this footprint nationwide.
Explain.
Well, he's the CEO and founder of a company by the name of CoConstruct, and CoConstruct is and I'll let him. I'll let him get into what his company does. But the bottom line is, it's a builder remodelable software, and I believe he has, and I may have the numbers wrong, and he'll correct me, somewhere around 5,000 subscribers or clients or customers all around the country. And what I'm hearing, and Donny will chime in on it, things are not slowing down. But I just can't wait for his feedback on that. But, we got this bet going. So
we do.
So I've got to do everything on my part to make sure I
don't lose. And you are. You're doing a good job.
I'm doing my job. So anybody out there,
with
please.
your charm and your salesmanship, I'm in trouble with this bet.
I don't know about
you
that.
in some ways have a little bit of control because you're actively involved with it. And me, I'm just an innocent
so now you're walking it back?
I'm not walking back. I knew you were going to say that. Judah Wickower, I like your style, Keith. Judah Wickower, I'm going to reach out to Donny now. It is ringing in both our ears, and we'll welcome him to the program. This is a big-time guest.
Believe me, if I start going sideways, I will walk it back.
I know you will. All right, he's on the line, Judah Wickower. Donny, we have you live for Charlottesville, Central Virginia, the Commonwealth, the country, and the world. Before we get into the nitty-gritty, thank you first for joining us, and just introduce yourself to the viewing public, please.
Yeah, guys. Yeah, thanks for having me. I appreciate it. Glad the technology's cooperating this time.
Right. Thank you, Donny.
Yeah, so it's great to be here. Sorry I couldn't be there in studio with you, but it's a great topic to be talking about here, and look forward to jumping into kind of what you guys are seeing locally, and then what we're seeing nationally with CoConstruct, with a bit of a sort of unique data-driven perspective on something.
I'm excited. Before we do, a snapshot on you personally, and then I'm going to pass you over to Keith.
Sounds good.
Tell us about yourself.
Oh, I could do the snapshot. What a trick question. There's a hardball. It was born at the old Martha Jeff, so Charlottesville native, but family moved all over the place. Ended up back in the area at UVA. Had to go off to Northern Virginia. Escaped. Came back down here in 2004, and then have been here ever since, out in Crozet. And so the house that we built in '04 was the inspiration for starting CoConstruct. So it's a online home builders and remodelers help them basically manage everything electronic about their projects with their team, their clients, and their subs. And then literally last week, I got to be a client on the system. So Christopher Bremett, Vermonte Homes, they had on last week, just built us a new house, and we just got to get moved in. So I'm excited to quarantine in a new place here for a little bit.
I love it. I love it, Keith.
Hey, Donny, good to see you in person, man.
Hey, good to see you, dude.
There you go.
Good,
I like your shirt. I got the exact same
Appreciate
shirt.
it.
Banana Republic?
It is Express, I think.
There you go.
Yeah.
We'll talk offline.
Thank you.
We'll talk notes offline. Just saying. Yeah. So, man, how's your family doing, buddy?
Doing well. They've all been threatened to stay quiet in a way. So I got a 11-year-old daughter and an 8-year-old son, and it's like everybody's settling into the rhythm a little bit on this. But and then some days you wonder if anybody's going to survive. Yeah. So it's a little touch and go.
So we were bantering back and forth before we went live. My oldest daughter, just turned 34 yesterday, and this gentleman is 36, and I felt very old very fast.
But you have a young spirit.
Young spirit.
You strike me as a dude that I would want to hang out with at the bar. Yeah. You remind me like a 25-year-old guy.
You realize I sell for a living, right?
No, you have a young spirit. You know you do.
So Donny, thanks, man, for coming on. This has been hugely important to me, and thank you for the shout out to Christopher and Vermonte Homes. I was going to try to open up with that. As a recovering developer and builder, I wish your product was around when I was building. So folks can understand this, right? You have a product that the builder uses. You hired the builder to do that. And oh, by the way, you guys live like 5 doors down from each other or something along those lines, right?
Yep.
So that's a huge confidence level. It's a huge hats off to Christopher and his team. So I just wanted to give him a shout out for that.
Yeah, they did a great job.
So my mask is falling down. So one of the quick things before we get into what's going on nationally, because that's really what I was excited about talking about. Man, talk about this dumpster fireside chat you do. That is the coolest thing ever. Yeah,
so it's and I wish I could. That my only credit is that we've attracted some great people to the team over the years. So we call him our builder in residence. So he actually lives up in Maryland, and so he was a client of CoConstruct for 10 years, but he was a developer, remodeler, a high-end custom builder, and there was this unique opportunity to snag him to come be on our team. So he's used the software, but he bleeds builder basically, and so one of his favorite phrases is, there's just as in building, there's always a dumpster fire burning somewhere, and you're just putting out one dumpster fire after another, and so. When all of this started, one of our big things at CoConstruct is trying to build a community and connect builders and remodelers across the country. It's a tough business, and you usually can't hang out with the guys in your local community because those are your competitors, so it makes it even more lonely. And so we've been doing a lot to try to connect people during this really uncertain time. And so it's like, you know what? I'm going to just start this Zoom call, and we're going to let everybody pile on, and we're going to call it, harkening back to, to the fireside chats. He's like, well, it's our dumpster fireside chats. And sometimes that's what it feels like on the calls, but it's it's sort of raw people sharing what they're doing, what they're worried about, and it's this really interesting emotional connection to folks that are all across the building industry, across the U.S. and even beyond.
So I want to walk out, get back into building, so I can go ahead and get into your system.
Yonna says, "No way, Jose. No way, Jose."
So do you actually have a dumpster burning while you're doing this?
No. Although, we're our office is under construction at the new 323 building downtown.
I'd love to talk about that.
And so there's this question of there's going to be a shipping container as part of it. We're trying to figure out whether we can get a fireplace in to create our own modern take on a dumpster fire. So to be determined, but there's discussion.
Well, so before we talk about your new building, right? You've got, I believe, 5,000. Is that the right number?
Yep, there are 5,000 building companies on the system.
So how are they doing, and what kind of feedback are you getting when you're sitting around this dumpster fire and is the market going up, down? Talk a little bit about that if you don't mind.
It is. So it sounds like a generic answer. It's all over the place, and it is so highly specific on where you are, even in what like section of a town that you're in, the types of projects you do. So we've got folks that'll do $5 million custom homes. We've got folks that'll do a $20,000 powder bath makeover, and kind of everything in between. And so whether you're doing a remodel or doing smaller interior projects, larger projects versus new builds, you tend to have a different experience. And then where you are. I mean, we've got folks sort of in the inner circle that are in sort of south of San Francisco, but the San Francisco metro area. So they had a whole bunch of start, stop, like you can work if you want, now you can't work at all. And so looking how they're navigating versus another builder of ours, think about in Oklahoma, where it's funny, you could watch, they were like 2.5 weeks behind the rest of the country. So we do these sort of roundtable calls. And he's like, I don't know what you guys are talking about. And then finally sort of Oklahoma would catch up with it and they'd see the effect. So you can see the folks that are a little ahead teaching the folks behind, essentially, as different people get it hit a different way. But at a real high level, the builders tend to be doing better right now because they've got a backlog of projects. Homes take a long time to build. As long as they're safely able to build, and they've been able to do that even with social distancing, maybe slowing down the projects a little so the trades aren't on top of each other. At the same time, those are underway even from a financing standpoint. Financing's locked in. There's money to pay for those homes. Those homes keep going. When you look at remodeling projects, the smaller they are, the faster they turn over, and the idea of having workers in your home, is concerning to folks. And so those guys have seen the lead flow dry up a lot, and those are the ones that I'm most concerned about. That I think as soon as people can come in and feel comfortable, that work will come back. Because honestly, nobody's been trapped at home for months saying, you know what? I love my home even more now that I've been like trapped in my home. Like nobody's saying that. And so I think there's a case to be made that the market was already strong, that there's this tidal wave of demand of people saying, oh my gosh, I got to fix this stuff because I've been staring at the same four walls and now I want them to look different when we're on the other side of it.
Well, the Smith residents just finished theirs, right? We created and actually we started it before this all happened, but we actually created a Zoom room in our house, excuse me.
That's great.
But I'm going to pass you over to Jerry. He's got a couple of questions and then I'm going to wrap up.
Yeah, Ray Cadell, thank you for sharing the feed. We'll welcome Long and Foster to the broadcast and Nest Realty along with Real Estate 3. How about the topic of how the home is going to change? And we were talking about this with Christopher, with John Kerber of Dominion Custom Homes. The home now much more an office. It's got a function for a quarantine where potentially you may not be leaving for 30 days. I mean, the home concept has changed so much. What's the pulse you're hearing from your end?
Yeah, so it's a couple things. One, not like the idea of a home office was a new concept. The thing we're seeing more is how many home offices. Like my wife works full time, and so there's the battle of who's got what room and who's got what conference and which has the least crappy background to look at when you're on a conference call, depending on who's on. And so this idea of multiple offices, how you distance the kid. I mean, our kids are on Zoom call. I mean, it's crazy. So there's that standpoint, and then there's also some other trends that we're seeing more nationally around clean air in the homes. If you think about how do you filter the air and how do you clean surfaces, the two ways this thing gets around. So there's some really interesting technologies out, like UV light that's integrated into your HVAC systems. And so we've already seen builders, some that are kind of on the West Coast, telling others about it, that they're already selling these things now in homes that they didn't even know about 6 weeks ago. And so that idea of a little bit of separated space, multifamily, I think, is going to feel it, especially if there's shared air systems. So there are a couple trends of things going in the homes in addition to the layout of the homes that I think is going to change.
Strong analysis. Agents asking what you think of the remaining 8 months of the year. I mean, how's the rest of 2020 shape up? I mean, I know you have more of a feel in the new construction space, but you are a barometer or a threshold in some ways of market indicators. What's your feel for 2020?
Yeah, I'm hesitant to be optimistic, but I'm super optimistic. I think the biggest problem is what happens when the tidal wave of demand comes back, and can people be ready to meet that, and whether there's just sort of this log jam of people trying to get stuff in because there's pent-up demand and then the natural demand came along the way. Resale market, I've got no insights on that. But on the custom side, or even on the new home side, there was a bunch of backlog. Leads have slowed down, but as long as they don't burn through the backlog, those leads are going to come back. So, builders, you still see stuff going in the ground. Christopher's business is still going strong. He's got another one up going down the street from me, and so I'm hopeful. But it's long. Two things to this, right? There's people's ability to pay and their desire to pay, and the desire comes around like fear and confidence, which I know you guys have talked about that as well. For a lot of people that are buying new homes, the abilities remain, not to minimize at all the job losses in the economy, but for our market, the ability is still there. So it's all about that confidence. And as soon as they start to see a tip, I think it's going to be back strong.
One more question for you. I'll pass it to Keith. Does the type of new residential construction change? In the beginning of Q1, we were so excited of this density model, this townhome type of model to drive pricing down. Because you're not necessarily scooping up the cost of the land. You know what I'm saying? So I'm going to throw this question to you. Does the type of new construction change with the buyer potentially wanting some more space, maybe away from a townhome type of concept to something that's more single family R1? Thoughts on it?
Yes, but I don't know. Honest answer, I don't want to BS the answer. Like I don't fully know. There's this question of these things take time and there's motion, so it could take a year.
Because we're talking human behavior changing here.
Yeah, and I think it's going to change. I think the biggest opportunity is for smaller custom builders that are able to adapt quickly, because the bigger production builders, they've got those plans set and they're 12 to 18 months out on the planning. Some of the smaller folks will be able to adapt faster, and they're the ones best positioned to take advantage of those kind of mindset changes.
So all great stuff. I told you he was a rock star. You can come back anytime, man. We got a little bit more time together. But so what I'm seeing, particularly on the new construction side, is this term delayed starts. That's what's happening, and that's to echo your pent-up demand. So Yonna and I have some custom homes that they've just timed out for right now, and I share your same sentiments. I think at some point, which nobody knows what that point is, and once that buyer's confidence level raises up and says, okay, builder, pull the trigger, what's probably going to happen is other people are going to say that at the same time, and then this backlog is going to kind of keep on going.
Do you think, to his point, the infrastructure's in place to meet the throttle or the faucet when it opens up?
So define infrastructure. We're talking financial infrastructure?
All of it. I mean, he's basically saying once the cattle is loose from the barn, we could potentially have a stampede. Can we handle that stampede if it happens?
Well, that's exactly what I'm saying.
Yeah.
So that's what's going to happen. It's going to be a funnel, right? And then everybody's going to jam in that funnel, and then that's when we, real estate agents,
got to rise to the occasion.
We're going to have to manage, and we're already starting this now with some custom guys that, hey, how is your buyers, how is your confidence level? Look, this may be a good time to act.
Here's a good point to this, and this is for you, Donny. I'm going to pass it to you. This is from an agent that's watching, Donny. Ray Cadell, 52 pendings since this past Friday in Albemarle County, Charlottesville, Fluvanna, and Greene. It's happening right now.
Yeah.
To your point.
Yeah, so we're going to talk more about this on Friday with some stats. Thank you, Ray, for doing that. Again, so just to kind of talk a little bit about what we've been, this deal that we did on
8 hours, right?
Yeah, something like 8 hours, yeah. But you know what the hang-up negotiating item was?
What?
UV light.
Really?
Right? Resale, right? And it was like, hey, great idea. We negotiated it into the deal, it was just a light bulb went off. Said, hey, great idea, let's do this. And we figured out a way to make it happen. So everybody was happy. The seller was excited about offering the opportunity. The buyer wanted to get it. Everybody's raised their confidence level. Everybody, as you said, confidence. And we moved forward. So, we didn't talk about that. Great minds. Okay, maybe on that side, think alike, and we move on. So, hey, man, I am super excited to hear about your office.
Me too, Donny.
I park right next to it because that's my cheat spot, so I don't have to pay for parking. And so where you at with it, man? We're on track or not, or?
Yeah, I mean, construction, a little behind is always on track, right? So, and actually the timing works out well. So, I mean, we'll be in by the end of the year. Some of it's on us building out our space inside the main building gets done, and then we got to figure out how to build a dumpster fire safely, in our space.
I'll call the fire marshal for you.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. The safe is the operative word. But it's a funny time, right? We've got, 110, 120 employees all successfully working remotely right now. And so the question of, do we do something, not like, do we not do the office, but do we think about the space differently? Do we think about, we already have about a quarter of the company that works remote. They live here, but they come in and out. And so there's a lot of question of, we're not in a big rush to get people back in the office, even with the state reopening. There's this logical break point that we get toward Thanksgiving or Christmas, we get people in, and then whether it's for social distancing or just a different use, the world's going to be different. And so how do we think about that now as we design the office? So the space and location are awesome, but we're trying to retooling of, do we want to rethink how we're utilizing?
Well, can I ask you that? Okay, I got 20. I don't mean to take it from you here. I got 20,000.
Bye, Donny.
I own 20,000 square feet in the Macklin building on Market Street, and I'm terrified. Okay, I'm not sure what's going to happen to the office space. My model's a little different in that it's 27 executive offices, where it's the individual offices. So I'm hoping there's trickle down demand for a Zoom room type situation where people want to get out of the house. Yeah. But what is a 2020 Class A office space for an emerging, booming company like CoConstruct look like now in COVID-19?
I think the question is, are the desks further apart? I mean, that's the simplest question in the end of how tightly can we pack people in?
Or do you want to?
Or do you want to?
Sit real close now. So it's a real basic question. How many people can actually fit in per square foot?
Before the camera got taken away from me.
Sorry, Keith.
And my partner in crime here, which the sad thing, man, is we're start thinking alike.
I know.
And he's not looking at my notes, but literally the question
we finish each other's sentences.
Literally the question he just asked was the one I was about ready to ask.
My wife said the other day, you spend more quality time with Keith than you do with me. I'm like, oh God, no God.
I am good looking.
Ask them the office question, whether they come back. Yeah.
So I was going to ask it a different way, right?
Yeah.
My business brain operates, right? If I was 20 years younger, 25 years younger, doing what you're doing, okay, I'm I'm part of a rather large building, right? Mm-hmm. There's a commitment there. There's
it's overhead.
Well, there's an aircraft carrier. You're not going to stop, right? That's moving.
Right.
But that doesn't mean I can't pivot it one way or the other. And I'm thinking if I was in your shoes, how would I use that space? How am I, so I think I know you well enough by now to know that's what's rolling around in the head. And,
yeah.
But what my thought was is there any opportunity to kind of get into I'm thinking about this on the fly. Some co-share space, right? So you're going to have all this square footage. You're going to have all this space. Is there some way to say, hey, I'm a one or two person operation, but I need a Zoom room? I mean, does that make any sense?
Well, yeah. I mean, to that point though, I think Jerry, to your question, I think the executive separate offices from one another. I think there's a lot of appeal to that. If anything, there's more appeal than a big open 24,000.
That literally that's literally what I'm betting on right there.
Yeah. So I'm on your side. I got money on your side. I think that makes sense. Keith, to your question about how we're thinking about it, it's probably a bad thing to say on a real estate show. I hate dealing with office real estate. This is I want my employees to have a comfortable place to work that they enjoy coming to. We enjoy being around each other when we have clients come in. I want our brand represented well. But otherwise, it is just one thing that gets in my way of trying to focus on our customers and our software. So even if I paid for that space to sit vacant and we're killing it otherwise, then that's better than me trying to figure out how to
I get it.
Milk every last dollar out of it. So the honest question is, I don't really know, and we can certainly cover the cost of it. I may come back in 9 months and figure that out.
He's basically talking about
because I don't want to lose sight on the customers and what.
Great answer.
Great answer. He's talking about the opportunity cost of his time and thinking on that versus something else that makes him money.
So we talk about this on the show all the time, Donny, and that's the reason I'm excited about having you on. You're not a transactional guy; you're a relational guy.
He's building a brand,
right?
Yeah.
So correct.
Yeah.
And my hat's off to you if I had one on.
And you know what? I'm going to give him some props on that. I know some friends that work at your company, at your brand. One of them immediately comes to mind is Pablo, is a tremendous squash and racquetball player.
Oh, yeah.
Dude, I got to give you some props, man. You are building a phenomenal brand. I hear from a lot of folks, 20s, 30s that are excited to work for CoConstruct. And I also want to give you some props of like bringing your business downtown. There was a point with us, business owners downtown, were very nervous when brands like Willow Tree pull out, go to Woolen Mills.
Yep.
We were uncertain of the hole that was going to happen. And then you guys announced. So it's great. Thank you.
Yeah.
Plus the core
Yeah.
building.
Yeah. We're glad to be part of it. We're excited.
Why did you pick downtown?
Well, the other answer is there aren't a lot of options with the amount of space that we needed. So, we're excited. We like the area, but there were only kind of two places to go, and one of them backed out because they didn't like the idea of a high growth tech company. There's this concern of like boom or bust kind of thing, and so we had one developer that said, "Hey, we want you," and we wanted them, so it worked out okay. If that had gone differently. Yeah, I don't know. So I felt very fortunate we ended up with everything.
As a chief executive, has it been easy to grow and expand a business like yours in the city of Charlottesville?
No.
Can you put that in perspective?
But I will say that. But so like you bring up Pablo, like Pablo's awesome, and we have a ton of other awesome folks on the team. Our recruiting process is really, really tough, and so we weed out way more people than we have come in, and so because we're really tight on that. Charlottesville's, and Albemarle is only so big. And so, especially on the development side, that's part of why our product and dev team is remote, is because we had to start pulling people from outside because we were relocating people in, but not everybody wants to move. You got kids in school, all this other stuff. So it's work. I'm glad we're based here. I'm glad most of our folks are based here, but we're having to reach outside a little bit to make sure we're getting the talent level that we need.
Good answer right there. Honest answer.
Well, I'm glad you're here.
Me too.
So thank you for being here.
Too.
Thank you for I know it's a bit of a struggle to work with the city. I've been there, done that. So thank you very much for doing that. So but on that spin, Charlottesville's kind of this little kind of hip high tech town, right? And I don't mean to belittle it, but this 100 to a couple of hundred employee footprint or 50 footprint. There's several of them around. Henceforth, the reason the core building is getting built. So my hat's off to you. Thank you for being here, and thank you for pumping all your energy into our local economy. We sure do appreciate it. So we're getting pretty close to wrapping up our time together. This thing went went better than expected, and I had a pretty high hopes for it. So
yeah, Donny, you killed it, man.
Look at that smile, man. How could you turn down the smile?
Thanks, this is fun talking about this stuff. So yeah, just let me know. Maybe we'll pick up and run on some other threads some other point.
Seat's always here for you.
Yeah,
you're always welcome back. Love to kind of check in on it. So wrap up. Any high level stuff you want to shout out to everybody?
Yeah, I'll just say if you're thinking about building and doing a remodeling project, pull the trigger now. Like what we're talking about, that tidal wave coming in. It's not just because I want to goose the industry. I don't think the industry needs my talking points help on that one. I think trades were already tight. They're going to be tight. I think costs could go up. It's good old supply and demand. So if you're thinking about it, there's a lot of reasons to be confident as we come out of this. And the matter of acting a week or two sooner can make a big difference for when you're getting your new home or get your home looking the way that you want. And so I'm bullish on it, and I think people should go for it.
So I think I'm going to check in with you 2 weeks from now to see if any of your dumpster fire conversation, they're starting to see that uptick of people pulling.
Yeah. Oh, well, sorry. We already see it in our data, by the way. It cratered in early April, but our number of project starts on our system is 5% higher than the same week in 2019. We've got the data to show.
That's a good metric.
They're back.
I need you to say that again.
That was a good one.
A little bit slower.
Yeah. So it cratered basically in April as far as number of projects added to our system, although still higher than Thanksgiving or Christmas. So holidays were still worse, but it was just unexpected. But then from mid-April on up, if you look at last week over week or year over year compared to 2019, same week, the number of ads were 5% higher than the same week.
That is a great stat.
So it's
perfect V-shape.
So it's funny because we've got a bet.
I knew you were going to say. Hold on one second. I knew
we've got a bet going on over a bottle of bourbon. And
tell him what the bet is. Just tell him the volume.
Oh, no.
You know what?
He and I are going to talk offline because I'm going to get more data from him and up my bet. I'm not going to.
Hey, I want in on the bourbon. If
All right, you got it, buddy.
I'm on here, but I'm getting a taste of this thing.
We'll hang around your dumpster and light it on fire and have a drink.
Hey,
Donny, you guys are cool, dude.
Yeah.
Donnie, you've been a lot of fun, man.
Yeah,
You're welcome back anytime.
Yeah. Thank you, Donnie. You have a good one. Smith, I knew you were going that way. I knew you were going that way. Oh, man. It was good.
Yeah. We had a conversation in the Costco parking lot last Friday, setting up the parameters for this, and I was supposed to run in. I think it closes at 6. I showed up at 5:30, and I looked at my watch, and I went, "Damn, they closed."
Because you were talking to Donnie.
Oh man, I had a great conversation.
He's great, dude.
He's a lot of fun.
Great, dude. Sally Hudson coming up. That metric really helps you in our wager.
Oh, I knew all about this. What do you think I made it?
It's crazy to think, isn't it? That's a heck of a stat, right?
Yeah, I just
5% increase year over year.
Yeah, so we'll talk more on Friday. We just have to track this stuff pretty closely, and what we don't want to do is be over optimistic and all that stuff.
Donnie said that was a lot of fun. Thanks for having me on.
Thank you, man.
Send us the text.
And we're having fun with this and stuff, and we also, not to bring it down, we're having fun with this, but there are a lot of people hurting out there.
Oh, absolutely.
So we need to be
Yeah,
mindful.
I think people appreciate that.
Yeah, sure.
We're trying to pass along knowledge and topic-oriented material in an approachable way.
Well, yeah, we talked about this offline before we came in. My concern, frankly, and maybe we'll chat a little bit about this with Sally. I'm starting to see the landlord, the tenant eviction stuff starting to climb. So next Friday.
And you got a question on this. I was going to table this question.
That
literally got put in by a guy who I think we both think is very intelligent, and Andre Xavier.
Sure.
And he has, and I don't want to answer for Keith, so I'm going to relay it to him, but I think this is the topic for next Friday's show.
It is.
He says, Jerry, can you ask Keith? I'm very curious to see how many short sale foreclosures we will see in the next 6 to 10 months, and also about tenant evictions. So that's Friday, right?
Yeah, that's Friday.
Yeah.
We're gonna. Thank you for the question. We're actually going to really focus on that for next Friday. We're actually bringing Anthony Haro in to talk about the homeless, because that's actually the most vulnerable of us.
Great guy.
Yeah, great guy.
Yeah. Always hesitant to cut Anthony Haro off mid-sentence.
Yeah.
Because when he's talking to him like this guy walks on water, me and you, we cut off mid-sentence all the time.
Yeah. You don't want to do that with Anthony.
I don't do that with Anthony. You can talk, Anthony.
Yeah, definitely. But we're getting to that next Friday, I promise you.
David Sloan, the broker, Slow
nice.
Manis, giving you props right now.
David's
he says,
good
"Way to
people.
go, Keith.
David's
Way to wear that mask. You look good."
Thank you.
David Sloan, welcome to the program. Judah, I'm going to reach out to Sally Hudson. We're Skyping her now, in fact, giving you a heads up. Judah Wickhauer is our director. Why'd you welcome Sally on the show?
Yeah, so Sally's a rock star, first and foremost, and just an awesome person to have a conversation with. But I kind of wanted to get the impact. We had a federal level congressman on. We've had local elected officials on, and I was really hopeful to hear from Sally, which I'm sure she'll chat about, is how things are flowing at the state level, and in reference to COVID-19, and then hopefully we can chart a little bit about what her vision is for the restart and the governor's plan.
I love it. And Judah Wickhauer, we have Sally Hudson on the line now. We'll go to the phone here on Real Talk. Sally, you are live. First, thank you for joining us. And before we get into the nitty-gritty, how's everything going with you? How are you doing?
I'm doing fine. Loved ones safe and healthy, which is all anybody can ask for these days. So very happy to be with you.
Well said. Friday, a day of excitement and uncertainty. Depending on where someone is on the fence, you're either very trepid or very excited as the economy slowly starts to open. I'll get out of your way on that topic and then pass it to Keith. Friday, what can we start to expect, do you think?
Well, the governor has indicated his willingness to move into this next phase as a state. I think the first thing to note for people is that these changes are really quite minor. As I think about what are the steps that the state is going to be allowing, I think there are really 4 biggies that matter for people's lives. One is that houses of worship will be allowed but not encouraged to open, and only at 50% capacity and with extensive cleaning guidelines. And I think that's the one where a lot of our public health professionals are most scared because they're the biggest potential gatherings of people, and especially among older Virginians who we know are most at risk. I was just on the phone yesterday with our fire chief talking about how he's especially scared about what happens as memorial services and funerals might become open again, because we know those have been hotspots for flare-ups. So that's number one. Number 2 is that our restaurants will be allowed to do outdoor seating again at 50% capacity, to try to get some of that good space. We know that it is so much safer for people to be outside than inside in a closed circulating air environment these days. So that's number 2. Number 3 is that campgrounds are going to start opening up, where those have been shut down at night, and then also some additional access to our public parks. Those are really the biggies. And then number 4 is that our personal grooming facilities can open. So barbers, nail salons, those kind of folks, but again, with really strict social distancing and appointments and personal protective equipment and all of that. So I say that to say is it's not as though Virginia is going to open in a deluge tomorrow. These are pretty minor steps. And I think that the most important thing is that we all do our part to hang with them. The other thing is that we know that in places where there are really still intense infection spreading, like Nova, there has been a really strong call from their local elected officials for higher standards because they're not ready to reopen. And we know Virginia is a big place and a diverse state and different communities with different needs. So we appreciate that flexibility.
Keith's got some questions. We have questions already coming in for Sally.
Sally, thank you. Thank you for doing this, and thank you for bumping into each other the other day at the commission's office. I didn't realize you had an office there, and we had a great chat. So I start off. Jerry kind of tapped into it. So how are you doing, Sally? Because I know we had this conversation. I know better than most that you're putting in 40, 60, 80 hours of your delegate hat while you're always also trying to do everything else in your life. So how are you doing?
I'm doing just fine. The core thing that we're doing right now is trying to make sure that we can get as many people as possible access to the state services that they need, connect them with Medicaid and unemployment. And obviously that's been a challenge for a lot of folks. So that's core job number 1 for me. And then doing my best to be your voice in Richmond, even though I can't physically be there right now because those offices are shut down too. Trying to make sure that the governor's team hears from everybody here and what they're coping with. We've had so many good ideas percolate up from this community about real problems that we can solve, whether it's about additional licensing for teachers or safety standards in private schools, lots of different things. And I appreciate everyone in our community who's being engaged.
So how are you and your fellow representatives working together? You guys coming together regardless of one's stripes to move this ball forward? Please tell me that's really happening?
I would love to tell you that's true. Richmond is really more of a stark blue-red place than we might like to think. And so there's not a lot of that. I think the harsh reality is that one political party has a lot to gain from having this go poorly.
Got it.
Right? And so there's a political incentive for them to encourage inaction, because if we start solving problems, it looks like we're capable of governing. Right. And so I think that there's a whole lot more roadblocking than we might like to think. I mean, here's a really stark example. We went to Richmond during the veto session to get together to vote on how might we give ourselves more flexibility so that we can continue to govern during a pandemic, and to give ourselves the authority to do remote voting, like lots of bodies are doing, so that city council, county board can meet remotely, so that we can stay in touch. And that was a straight party line vote. There was no indication, across party lines that we're gonna figure out together logistically how do we do this right.
I'm an optimistic guy, so hopefully that'll change. That needs to change. But one of the neat things that the governor put out is, and we'll put a link up there, where there is a very specific rules and guidelines per industry. You were talking about that earlier, and it's a pretty awesome link. And the only reason I know a little bit more about it is my youngest sister owns a hair salon here in town, and so I normally have to get an appointment anyway because I'm her brother and I get way on the bottom.
You don't get the hookup?
I don't get the hookup. I get put on the bottom, and apparently I'm really on the bottom now because something about paying customers come first. I don't understand what that means.
Give her a tip, kid.
I have no idea.
Give her a tip, man.
Maybe you guys can share that with me. So we started in the beginning of the show. I don't know if you heard it or not. So my father, grandfather, great-grandfather, all New York City firemen, and the hero in my life is my father. And I remember as a young boy, we were doing things, and he always used to say, safety first, Batman, right? So the bottom line is everybody needs to be safe. Everybody needs to take care of themselves and think about Sally and think about Jerry, right? And, make sure that we do it. And I think, and again, I'm an optimistic guy, if we are able to actually think of others, we will get through this. It'll take a little bit of time and go through it, but I'm pretty confident if the governor starts seeing some problems, I mean, he'll just, I believe, he'll shut it down again. Is that a fair statement?
Really blunt tool to use, and we know has extreme dimensions in some communities and less so in others. And so I think state and local government are doing their best to try to coordinate to be responsive where we need to be. But the governor's tools are pretty heavy-handed and blunt, and that they were necessary.
But did he not give each jurisdiction the ability to either be more restrictive, not less restrictive, right? So the city of Charlottesville or Albemarle County or Fulvana County or what other jurisdiction, they can
That question literally just came in for Sally, yeah.
They can add to it, is that correct?
It's important to remember that the jurisdictional boundaries of our cities and counties in Virginia don't overlap very well with communities. I mean, again, I was talking with Andrew Baxter, who's our fire chief, runs the EOC, and he was saying, if it's happening in the city but not the county, it might as well not be happening, right? In a public health emergency like this where we have an infection spreading. So the same thing is true. I mean, I think as you go up into Nova, the boundaries between those cities and counties are old school and arbitrary, right? And have very little to do with the commuting habits of communities anymore. And so that is when we really need regional approaches and bigger state level approaches. Again, state level boundaries are arbitrary. The DMV area has infection spreading across state lines. So it's a real challenge when the boundaries of government and legal authority don't really match the boundaries of community and mobility.
Good analysis. This question's coming in for you, Sally, here. And this is from a Charlottesvillian. Jerry, I love the show. Please ask our delegate this question without using my name. I'm terribly fearful as a mom, and as a mom that has her parents in this community of Charlottesville and Albemarle County reopening again. Are we not concerned about Nova residents coming down to Charlottesville and Central Virginia because their community can't open and maybe they're looking for some fresh air as well? That's a good question. I'm hearing this from a lot of people. If we open in stages, say someone like Northern Virginia that's looking to come down to Charlottesville or Central Virginia, people are concerned about. What do you make of that topic, Sally?
I think it's a fair question. I think that's like one level up, right, from saying it's not just a problem with cities and counties, it's regions. I mean, I think that we saw that when things really started to flare in New York City, it was the communities that had the most natural travel connections to New York that started to see the hot spots flare up for the same reason. So I think we should all be worried for that reason. And that's why it's going to be really incumbent on our business owners in the hospitality community and their customers to make sure that they abide by those restrictions, because it's going to be that hospitality industry that might draw people across regions back to Central Virginia.
We got this topic coming up, and this is right in your wheelhouse with what you do professionally. Take the restaurant category. We have a number of team members in the restaurant category or industry that are on unemployment now. And the hesitation is, how do I return back to work to a dining room that's potentially 25% filled because of social distancing guidelines? I can make more on unemployment than going back to work. That is a hot topic right now. Your thoughts as an economist on that topic?
I think that means unemployment insurance is working. We're trying to pay people to stay home right now. That's exactly what the program is for, because what we're trying to give them we're trying to stop the virus. So I understand that that's a challenge for industry recovery, but I don't think ending unemployment insurance benefits is the tool to stop that. We have lots of other tools that folks are working with and that could be working much better to backstop our industries, but our workers, for their safety, have been needing to stay home.
This question, Jerry, I'm a restaurant owner in the downtown mall. small. Please ask your guest if reopening the economy is an opportunity for the Commonwealth to get staffers and team members off their payroll and back onto our payroll. Interesting question right there. He's basically saying if we reopen back up and then we have to offer people jobs to come back to work, is this done in a way to get people off unemployment and the Commonwealth's payroll and back onto the small businesses balance sheet?
Again, I mean, as I say as an economist, and as the grand consensus in our profession is that we solve the public health problem before we can solve any of the economic problems, and there is no putting the cart before the horse there. And so I think that unemployment is doing what it should be doing right now, which is giving folks a safety net while it's not safe to be at work. I understand that that's not how we want the world to be. So that's not how any of us wants the economy to work in normal times. We all want to live in a world where it's safe for everyone to go to work and our industry can be earning. But in this particularly difficult public health crisis, I think that's the best option ahead of us among many bad options.
Good take right there. I'm going to pass you to Keith here shortly. Before I do, this topic came up on our show last week. The NASDAQ goes green for 2020. At the same time, 33 million Americans are unemployed. 15% unemployment across the country, and 20% of Americans either unemployed, furloughed, or underpaid. The wealth gap, such a hot topic right here. I'll get out of your way on that topic. Anywhere you want to go there.
I mean, I think it tells you that the stock market is a terrible indicator of the health of the economy. One thing is clear from this crisis, and it's that the big are going to get bigger. We're going to see small businesses go under, and we already are, and it's heart-wrenching. And we're going to see them gobbled up by bigger industry. And so there's a reason the stock market is soaring. There's a lot of big companies that are going to be put in a more competitive position of this because they're going to gobble up the little guys. So, there's a lot of investors that are licking their lips and trying to figure out how can we consolidate. I think it's another reminder that if you're watching the stock market as an indicator of how strong our people and our country is, you're kind of got your eye on the wrong ball.
Yeah, the stock market's never been an indicator of how the market's going. It's a great thing to watch, but in my opinion, and I'm not an economist, so I don't have the PhD that you have at the back of your name, but one should never look at the stock market as an indicator of how the economy is going. I personally went through 2008, lost everything we had on it, so there are unfortunately going to be winners and losers in this process. There always is. But to go back to the unemployment, with a lot of people, and Sally used a very specific word, insurance.
Yeah.
Right? So as an employer, I pay into this insurance policy. So this isn't the state pulling money out of a account somewhere, and correct me if I'm wrong, Sally, doesn't pull money out of an account somewhere and give it to Jerry. As an employee, you've been paying into this, and I think this is the point Sally's trying to make. You have been paying into this insurance program, and now we're recovering. We're taking back from that. And I'll be painfully honest. In 2008, I took unemployment insurance. I laid myself off. I've been paying into that for 20-something years up until that point, and this was time for it. And I'll be honest, we went from $17 million to zero. And if it wasn't for that unemployment insurance, I probably wouldn't have kept my house. It's there for a reason. So, I get the whole, my making more money on and off, and I love people. I think people do the right thing naturally. Once they can go back to work and get off that, they'll do it. I'm confident of that. I don't know if Sally has any opinion on what I just said.
Yeah, I mean, insurance is how we share risk. That's how economists think about it, right? It's about social insurance is how we share risk. And unemployment insurance is not there to prevent people from losing their jobs. It's there to make sure that they don't go broke when job loss happens for reasons that had nothing to do with either the business owner or the the workers fall. And so we're leaning on those social institutions right now. And I think the other thing we're doing is we're spotting lots of gaps in them.
Sure.
I mean, we've learned from so many people that there were workers not covered by unemployment insurance who suffered this big shock as well. A lot of our gig workers are self-employed, are sole proprietors. So, that's a crisis will expose the gaps in your social safety net real quick.
So unfortunately, situations like this expose those gaps, right? It happened in '08, exposed some gaps, particularly in the lending world, right? In my opinion, they got fixed. We're going to go ahead and fix some of these gaps. So we're getting close to wrapping up.
We have questions for her.
And so I wish. So Jerry and I have been doing this so long, we're answering each other's
We finish each other's
sentences and thoughts. So I'm going to hand this back to Jerry because Jerry's going to some fees. But before we do, thank you, and thank you. I know how much time this takes from you personally. Anybody who doesn't understand that needs to spend some time with an elected official and understand how much time they spend. So thank you so much with it, and I'm going to pass you back to Jerry, and thanks again.
Sally, a lot of questions coming in here. You're phenomenal in this setting. This one's from Camelin Leon. I hope I'm getting your last name right, Camelin. She says, does our delegate know anything about making testing for the community and expanding testing beyond healthcare workers more available?
Sure. So one thing I can tell you real quick is that tomorrow, the Yancey School and the southern side of Albemarle by Esmont will have free testing available drive-through. That's by appointment only and for people with symptoms. If you hop on my Facebook page right now, there should be a link to it, but you can also do a little Googling. Right now, testing is still limited to people who are actively experiencing symptoms. We are not yet at a place as a Commonwealth or a country where we can be doing broader testing of people to just get a sense of like how much of this virus is out there among folks who may be it's a really big part of transmission. Sorry, I lost your connection there for a sec. So that's what I know is happening this week. Hopefully we get to more of that soon. I know it's a top goal for the governor.
She says, thank you, Sally, for that answer. New question coming in. Is there a role that the delegates or you guys play in Richmond with working with the University of Virginia and trying to getting it back online with students back in Charlottesville? That's a good question. It's interestingly because you also work there, so you have a lot of irons in the fire on this. Your thoughts on that topic?
So that's not part of my official delegate duties, but as a member of the community, I try to stay in close touch with the university as much as I can. That decision making right now is really running through our university administrators, and they're doing their best to cope as well.
This question's coming in. Jason Krigler says, appreciate Delegate Hudson's perspective and honesty on this show. This question coming in from Tim. Can you ask our delegate to put her economist hat on and ask her what she thinks the economy is going to look like when we get outside of COVID-19?
I think it's going to look very different. I mean, I think the biggest thing that most of us are worried about as we put our big lens economist hat on is this big getting bigger phenomenon that we're going to see a lot of small businesses go under. And we know that has big problems for the economy at large. When things are working well, we've got lots of competitors in a market. That's what keeps wages high. That's what keeps employers, treating their workers well. When we've got all of these really big corporations that own a huge market share, we just see a much less vibrant economy, and it trickles down to real people. So that's the biggest thing I'm worried about.
Grace says, I'm watching your program in Richmond. We usually watch this while working in Cubicle City. Now we're at home, and the show is still good. Can you ask the delegate if she anticipates technology cannibalizing all the jobs that we have lost?
Well, I mean,
that's a good question.
Here's the real danger, I think, is that so much of the growth in employment in our economy in the last 10 years has been from services. And we thought that was going to be a good thing in some ways because many of those are good jobs if they're well paid. I mean, there's lots of good social interaction. They're engaging, they're fun, they're challenging, and in fun, may not be the best word, but now, if we physically can't be together in a way that lets service sectors run, that's going to turn our growth model for jobs totally on its head. And I know, all sorts of folks may be vulnerable to that. If you suddenly can't go see a doctor in person, then maybe your teledoc is going to be halfway around the country or the world. And so there's a lot of industries right now that are worried about what happens when we can't really deliver that high value add of in-person services. So I think technology is going to play.
Guys, I'm gonna ask Sally one more question. We just don't have time to get to all these questions here. This is the last one, and I'll pass you to Keith. This question: I work for UVA Health. If you could ask the delegate what her thoughts were when she read that we were losing $85 million a month. Thank you for your show, Jerry and Keith.
You know, it's another great example that our healthcare system's financial model is wholly broken. That, you know, we're going under at a time when all of our healthcare workers and systems are in overdrive. It tells you that the model of using those high value services to subsidize the core primary care and, you know, serving the people who are sick in front of you just doesn't work. And so my hope is that this may be one of those crises where enough different people of enough different stripes finally got exposed to that harsh reality that we will summon the political will to overhaul how we pay for healthcare. Because if we can't do it now, then we're not prepared for what the great healthcare system should be built to withstand.
Dude, that take right there was fire right there. Yeah. And you're getting props from the viewers. She's great. Camlin, so interesting to hear her observations and her takes. Thank you again for having her on the show. We're out of time almost here.
So, thank you. You have a virtual spot anytime you want. Yeah,
Sally, you rock.
Anytime you want it here. Matter of fact, what are you doing Friday? No, I'm only kidding. I'm only kidding. Friday's already booked up. But, you know, Jerry in the beginning asked what I wanted to accomplish in this conversation. And what we just went through is what I wanted to accomplish. What I really wanted to accomplish is folks to chime in on the feed and ask their elected official a question. And we're going to bring you back again. Thank you. Again, I'm just going to repeat it again. I know more than most how much time you're putting in, and thank you for what you're doing.
Yeah, thank you, Sally.
Well, thank you, and thanks for all you're doing. I mean, you create this awesome public platform, which is what this is all about, so thank you for your work.
Our pleasure. You have a good one, Sally. Thank you.
Bye.
She's awesome. Sally Hudson, guys. I'm going to go ahead and say this. On this, how long have we been doing this?
This is well over a year, 60-something.
I would say this is a top 1% show.
Oh, without a doubt. Only because I got out of the way.
No. I mean, everything went.
Yeah. So
Judah, us, the guests.
Yeah,
people have no idea in the 10 minutes prior to the show what doing a live show is about, do they?
Yeah. We were having trouble.
They have no idea.
They have no idea, yeah.
Great show.
Yeah, great show. And look, I meant this when we wrapped up with Sally. That's exactly what I wanted. I wanted folks to chime in, to ask our elected officials questions. We're going to bring in some local guys, some more guys and gals, and some more federal levels and state levels, because, you know, they're the folks on the pulse of this.
Yeah, front lines.
And, you know, this for lack of a better term, I call this a cannon, right? We've got a cannon that we can get information out to people and get them to communicate, and plus we have a lot of fun. So.
Oh, it's so fun. Lauren says, amazing show. Thank you to Sally Hudson for coming on the program. Yeah. Lauren, thank you for watching. Next Friday. Yeah,
so next Friday, like I said, we have Anthony coming in, so we're going to really dive into how this is impacting the homeless. You know, his unfortunately, as he refers to him, his clientele are growing, which is not a good thing. We're also going to bring in some folks to talk about what the impact is on the rental market. That's a big concern of mine, on the impact of evictions and stuff like that, because most of the people that are really the larger people,
33 million unemployed, a large portion of the 33 million unemployed, and a large portion of the 20% of Americans that are underemployed or underpaid are renting.
That is correct.
That's what
I'm getting at. Yeah. So that's a big concern to me.
So your concern is you're going to see evictions more than foreclosures. That's what you're alluding at.
Well, foreclosures are going to go up. Foreclosures have been going up. But you're not going to see the foreclosure, in my opinion, the foreclosure crisis we had before. The mechanisms are in place to prevent that, and we'll talk about data on Friday and the equity that people have in their homes now are much higher than they were in 2008.
Well played.
Thanks,
good show.
Oh, we weren't supposed to do that. Where's the hand sanitizer?
It's over there.
It's over there. Okay.
We'll get it over there.
Let's hurry up.
Let's hurry up.
Let's hurry up.
He's Keith Smith. Judah Wickar on the other side of the camera. My name is Jerry Miller. This program is called Real Talk.
Thanks,
it's
guys.
an insight into real estate, life, and the pursuit of happiness, powered by the Yes Team Realtors. If you guys need trusted advisors in the real estate game to buy or sell your home, Keith and Yonna Smith. Okay.
And anybody else on the feed.
Well, I'm gonna say Keith and Yonna
Yeah,
Smith.
well,
This is me saying it.
I know that. But
I
there's
get
some
you in
good,
hot water.
There's some good. You're going to get me in hot.
I know.
There's some really good real estate
Sometimes I like
agents.
it.
I know that.
Keith
I love
is
you
great,
too.
people. This show is awesome, and we will see you guys on Friday at 10:15 on Real Talk. Thanks to the Yes Team Realtors. Good show.
Yeah,
Great work, Judah.
as always.
Yeah, that was the top 5. Good job. Heel toss.